Iraqi government forces and Shiite militias are facing heavy resistance from ISIL militants determined to hold on to the strategic city of Fallujah, west of Baghdad. Tens of thousands of troops backed by US-led airstrikes have had some success clearing villages to the north and south of the city, but the offensive has slowed down. Iraqi officials are concerned for the safety of 50,000 civilians who remain trapped in the city. The United Nations says an estimated 20,000 children are among the families struggling with dwindling water and food supplies.
We gave civilians inside Fallujah the option to either flee through safe exits we guaranteed for them or stay in their houses. The main target of the operation now is to reduce the number of victims among civilians and also to minimize losses among our armed forces. The enemy has planted many bombs. However, we may raise the Iraqi flag inside Fallujah in the coming days.
For the latest now on efforts to reclaim Fallujah, we turn to CCTV's Susanna George in Baghdad. And Susanna, ISIL fighters have held that city of Fallujah for over 2 years. Do we have any idea of how many fighters are there, and how challenging will it be for Iraqi forces to retake that city?
The U.S.-led coalition estimates that it's anywhere between 500 and 700 IS fighters who are inside Fallujah. But it's not only the fighters' sheer numbers that are presenting a problem for Iraqi troops who are trying to push into the city proper. It's also that these fighters have had more than 2 years to dig into the city and build up their defenses. Commanders on the ground say that they've encountered defenses greater than any of the others that they have in the fight against IS in other parts of the country. Complex tunnel systems and sniper positions that have prevented Iraqi troops from advancing. And all of this is before Iraqi troops have even entered the more urban parts of Fallujah that will require house-to-house clearing that will be even slower going.
And what about the dangers that civilians face? We've heard reports that ISIL fighters are threatening to kill anyone who tries to leave.
Yes, we've heard the same thing from civilians inside Fallujah. One family who we spoke to said a relative of theirs tried to escape. He waited until nightfall and tried to leave the city through back roads and farmland, but was caught by IS, and he was shot, and his body was dumped in the middle of the street. The family said that this was intended to be a warning to other civilians inside the city not to attempt to flee. Now, because of because of the fear among civilians and also the tight control that IS has of the roads in and out of the city, almost none of the 50,000 civilians that are trapped in the city center have been able to flee. Some 1,000 families have fled since the operation began, but most of those families were from the outskirts of Fallujah. Humanitarian conditions are dire, and this is just putting even more pressure on Iraqi forces to make progress quickly so that some of these families can be freed from Fallujah before the humanitarian situation inside the city deteriorates further.
Thanks, Susanna. That's CCTV's Susanna George reporting from Baghdad. Joining us now from Erbil is Rend al-Rahim. She served as Iraq's representative and chief of mission to the United States from 2003 to 2005 and is the co-founder and president of the Iraq Foundation. Rend, thanks for joining us. When we look at this latest battle for Fallujah, question is, why now and what are the chances of success?
Well, why now is a really important question. I would say there are 3 reasons. One of them is strategic, in that Fallujah is the gateway to Baghdad. And in the last 3 months, the terrorist activities have really spiked in the capital. In all probability, the terrorism is coming from Fallujah. So that the threat to Baghdad from Fallujah has recently risen. And so it's important to try and stem the rise of terrorism. Secondly, I think it's important for the military to show success and stay honed. Remember that we have the Battle of Mosul coming up, perhaps later this year, perhaps in 2017. In the meantime, the army has to stay in practice and has to show successes. And the third reason, of course, is political. Prime Minister Haider al-Abadi is in a dreadful political impasse. We've had riots in the streets. We've had people entering the green zone, which is the center of government. And he has been challenge on many levels, and he really needs a success in Fallujah. Now, will they succeed in Fallujah? I believe they will. Now, if you look at the map, there's Fallujah in the center, and then there are outlying villages and areas. Many of those outlying areas and villages have already been taken over by the army and by the various militias that have been formed. And Fallujah is virtually encircled now. What is missing is the center of the city, which is going to be the next and the very big prize. I think it'll come, but they're moving very slowly because of the fear of casualties. So instead of taking days, it may take much longer than we anticipate.
I just want to get back to that third reason you just gave me for launching this offensive, it being political. And I'm wondering whether that is the primary reason for Prime Minister Haider al-Abadi launching this offensive. Is it to divert attention from the problems that he has at home?
Well, it certainly is a very powerful reason. I don't know that I would put it above the reason for securing Baghdad from further or increased terrorist attacks. Fallujah is really the gateway to Baghdad, and there have been so many attacks on areas in the outskirts of Baghdad that lie between Baghdad and Fallujah. And it's very difficult to sustain the casualties. I believe there have been hundreds of casualties in the month of May. I haven't seen final statistics, but there may be as many as 550 casualties, both killed and injured. And that is a level that really the Prime Minister Abadi and the entire nation cannot put up with. So from that perspective, from a security perspective, Fallujah is very important. Politically, Prime Minister al-Abadi does need success. He has been hobbled in every effort that seeks reform. In every way that he has suggested reform, he has been thwarted by the political parties that are entrenched, that have vested interests in the status quo, don't want to see any change. And basically, Prime Minister al-Abadi is very weak. And so gaining Fallujah, winning in Fallujah, is a huge win for him, not only militarily, but also politically.
And what do you think will be the impact on the broader question here of reconciliation between Sunnis and Shias in Iraq? Will a battle of this kind aggravate tensions between these two groups? Because we have Fallujah, which is a Sunni stronghold, and we have Haider al-Abadi, the Prime Minister, who is leading a Shia-dominated government, launching this battle in Fallujah.
Yeah, that's a very important and sensitive issue. If you remember, in the battle for Ramadi, perhaps 2 or 3 months ago, that issue came up very prominently, and the Prime Minister and the Iraqi army and all the armed forces, as well as coalition forces, in this case, of course, we're talking about American forces, were very careful not to antagonize the Sunni population of Ramadi and the areas around Ramadi, Heat, Ana, and so on, that were liberated. Fallujah is a very tough case. Fallujah has been a difficult city since 2004. Now, you may remember that the Americans fought extremists and insurgents in Fallujah not once but twice in 2004. And things haven't improved in Fallujah. People talk about ISIS being taking over Fallujah in early 2014, that is to say before they took over Mosul. I know from my own personal experience that Fallujah has been a stronghold of extremists and proto-ISIS, proto-AQI, al-Qaeda in Iraq, really since 2003. So there is a difficulty, an ideological difficulty there. And as you say, all the residents of Fallujah are Sunnis. The problem arises in this way. We have the Iraqi armed forces, which are composed of different sort of regular forces that follow the Ministry of Defense and the Prime Minister. We also have Sunni militias that have been trained by the international coalition that is now training the army and so on. And these number about 5,000 troops. Their training is recent. They're not battle-hardened. You also have the Shia militias, which are formerly known as the Popular Mobilization Forces. Now, those are all Shia, and they have proven quite successful in the liberation of cities in Salah ad-Din. And they have defended Baghdad very well, both in the north of the city and to the west of the city against terrorist attacks and against ISIS itself. In 2014, the Shia militias really protected Baghdad against an encroachment by ISIS. ISIS could have run through the western part of the city if it hadn't been for the Popular Mobilization Forces. Now, those are Shia and very ideologically Shia,
right,
not just Shia on paper. These Shia militias have been part of the overall military campaign against Fallujah. And that is both helpful because they are very capable, they're very well trained, but on the other hand, it poses a problem because the last thing the Fallujahs want, the citizens of Fallujah want, is to see the Shia mobilization forces walk into their city as conquerors,
right,
as victors. And so you have this dilemma. The way it has been resolved so far is that the Popular Mobilization Forces have said that they will help in the encirclement of the city, in the siege of Fallujah, but that they will not enter into the city proper. So far, that pledge has held, although just 2 days ago, one of the leaders of the Shia militia said, well, if necessary, we will also go into the city. If there is a need for us, we will also go into the city. Let us hope that there is no need for them to do so. Let's hope that they can stay on the outskirts, they stay in the outlying areas as a force besieging the city, and that the regular armed forces and the Sunni militias go in and liberate the city. And therefore, the Sunnis and government troops and the Iraqi army are the liberators.
Great. Thank you. Thanks for your time.
Thank you.